Hello boys and girls, my name's Tom, and on today's show we'll be talking about Netflix and its continued domination of good TV, Starcraft 2's Legacy of the Void, and a little bit more Fallout 4, because that's still all I'm doing with my life. I've got about 60 hours logged so far. Please send help. This is Safehouse. I've had an unusually sporty weekend, with the gang getting together for our traditional NFL Sundays, watching the Tampa Bay Buccaneers win against the Philadelphia Eagles, which is great, and shortly followed by a WWE Survivor Series in which Sheamus was crowned the new WWE Champion, which is unusual. They'll never know we filmed this Sunday lunchtime. But other than that, it's been the standard affair of Fallout and Netflix that my life has become. And while I have sided with Fallout as of late, my good friend and co-host James Pickard has sided with the latest big thing from Netflix.
It's been a pretty good week or so for television, what with the start of Sky Atlantic's crime thriller The Last Panthers, Amazon's adaptation of the Philip K. Dick story Man in the High Castle, and the second collaboration between Marvel and Netflix, Jessica Jones. I'll admit, my hype levels for Jessica Jones have been pretty high after the surprise hit of Daredevil earlier this year. And considering the show's drenched in noir style, it seems like it'd be a perfect fit for someone who idolises the likes of Sam Spade and Philip Marlowe. I'm about halfway through the season so far, so expect a few mild spoilers here, but you're after a quick verdict, I'd definitely suggest you give it a watch. It's perhaps not quite as good as Daredevil, but it's definitely better than that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. rubbish. So anyway, Jones is a rude, stubborn and alcoholic private investigator with some vague superpowers. Apparently she has super strength and super agility, but none of them are ever really clarified. And she's on the hunt for someone dangerous from her past. That leads the show down the path of intrigue and investigation compared to the action focus of Daredevil. Jessica Jones is all sideways glances from the shadows and hoodies and telescopic lenses. It's set to a soundtrack of walking bass lines and brass, as if Veronica Mars had an attitude problem. And that all sounds like my favourite thing ever, but it's just not really clicking yet. I think if anything is the real problem with Jessica Jones, it's its villain. Kilgrave, played by David Tennant, is what would happen if Derren Brown went rogue, bending people's minds to his will just for the fun of it. He's an anarchist, in a sense, and we all know that anarchist supervillains can work. But where the interplay between the Joker and Batman is what defines them, Kilgrave and Jessica just kind of butt heads randomly every now and then. He taunts and teases her from afar, but there's not really much substance to it, and in the end he just comes across as a bit of a dick. Compare that to Fisk from Daredevil, who is this kind of a villain but also trying to be a hero in his own way, and you get a bit of a backstory there to him. Maybe it's going to develop in future episodes, but at the moment it all seems a bit dull.
Staying with the theme of Netflix, it's recently been announced that they'll be producing a rebooted series of Irwin Allen's classic sci-fi adventure, Lost in Space. All we know so far is Matt Sazama and Burke Sharpless, who scripted Dracula Untold and The Last Witch Hunter, have been brought on as executive producers, alongside director Neil Marshall of Doomsday and The Descent fame. Bit of a mixed bag of previous projects there, but let's not forget the guy who did Guardians of the Galaxy also wrote the Scooby-Doo movies. Which isn't a great comparison because Scooby-Doo 2 Monsters Unleashed is the Citizen Kane of our generation.
Fuck you.
But still, this isn't the first time we've seen a reboot of Lost in Space. Since the original aired in 1965, we've had two different pilot episodes, an animated one in the 70s and a live-action one directed by John Woo back in 2003. And of course, let's not forget the 1998 feature film starring Matt LeBlanc and Gary Oldman. Please God, let me forget that film. It's said that they're aiming for an epic yet grounded re-envisioning of the show, which itself is heavily based on Daniel Defoe's Robinson Crusoe stories from nearly 300 years ago. If I had to speculate, I'd say the show would probably go down the route popularised by J.J. Abrams some 10 years ago. A group of people stranded in a strange location have to band together to survive their increasingly weird surroundings, but while taking time to focus on the interpersonal relationships of the group. Only, set amongst the stars. So like Lost, but in...
This week's Thing of the Week is Legacy of the Void, the third expansion to the Starcraft 2 trilogy, wrapping up the three-way war between the Protoss, Zerg and Terran. Having already seen the Terran and Zerg perspective in Wings of Liberty and Heart of the Swarm, Legacy of the Void focuses on Artanis' attempts to reunite the splintered Protoss race. As you probably would expect from Blizzard, it's another well-constructed campaign with enough mission variety and flashy cutscenes to hold your attention through its 20-plus hour length. But the most exciting feature of Legacy of the Void is the new co-op mode. Mark and I, who you've seen on the show before, have been hitting it pretty hard lately, working through the half a dozen or so missions that are included with the game. You select a famous figure from each race and team up to complete skirmish missions, levelling up and unlocking new abilities as you go. In a game that's traditionally relied quite heavily on competitive multiplayer, the co-op mode serves as a pretty fun distraction. Missions are varied, and coordinating attacks with your partner using units and abilities from different races can be immensely satisfying. For even the most casual strategy gaming fan, it means there's actually quite a lot on offer here in Legacy of the Void, and now that you don't even have to own any of the previous expansions to pick it up, you really don't have much of an excuse.
I promise this is the last time I'll talk about Fallout 4. I don't promise that at all. But with 60 plus hours now logged, I've seen a fair chunk of what the Commonwealth has to offer. I've built many a settlement, I've discovered many weird and wonderful locations, and I've finished the main story, or one of 3 potential main stories. I sided with the Institute, in case you wondered, because I'm an awful person. But the one thing I love most about Fallout is when it gets dark, when it looks at the horror aspects of wasteland life, whether it be subtle or unbelievable. So today I have prepared a list, which may feature some tiny minor spoilers, but nothing relating to the main story. Here's 5 times Fallout 4 got spoopy. My first example is probably the most overtly spoopy. It's trying to scare you, which is why it takes place in the Salem Museum of Witchcraft, where a group of gunner mercenaries have taken refuge from some unknown monster. After winding your way through the museum, finding gore-soaked rags and hearing the thudding footsteps of some great beast, you find that the gunners made the fatal mistake of stealing a clutch of Deathclaw eggs, and mummies come back for them. Second on the list is a quarry located due west of the Witchcraft Museum, once owned by the Dunwich Mining Corporation, previously heard of in Fallout 3. And if you've played that and found yourself in the basement of the Dunwich building, you know you're in for some old-fashioned Lovecraftian horror. Inside the quarry, which seems to go impossibly deep, you'll fight raiders and feral ghouls before experiencing hallucinations, brief glimpses of ritual sacrifices and underground cults. At the very bottom, on a sacrificial altar, you can find a unique dagger to fulfill all your shanking needs. Staying in the northeast of the Commonwealth for now, not far from the quarry, you'll find the Parsons State Insane Asylum, which is privately owned by a Mr. Jack Cabot, whose family has a dark secret. Offer to help him with a few errands and things will escalate until you end up here, trapped in the basement with a 400-year-old man with limitless strength and endurance and telekinetic powers granted by an ancient artifact attached to his head. My personal favourite on this list is another love letter to H.P. Lovecraft and is the Pickman Gallery. After finding a calling card on a mutilated corpse, you'll be directed to this small building just near North End Church, in which someone appears to have been creating works of art using human remains. Paintings painted with blood, corpses posed into statues, it's all pretty grim. And best of all, you can actually save the artist from a group of raiders and become his little mate for a unique knife weapon, which I did because I'm an awful person. The last one I'm going to keep vague, purely for the Fallout 4 players out there, but there's a place just east of Diamond City called Boston Common. People warn you about Boston Common, say people go there and never come back. In Boston Common, there is a pond. Swan's Pond. If you're looking for that specific kind of horror that comes from a nigh unstoppable monster, just dip your toe into Swan's Pond. You'll see what I mean. That's about all the time we have for this week.
Yes, if you enjoyed anything you saw, please do remember to like, comment, subscribe, tweet, Facebook,
all of the things.
Social media us.
We love it. Thanks very much for watching, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
But it's definitely better than that Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. rubbish. Oh, shots fired.